Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions. Welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, on the road, broadcasting from a hotel room as we're driving through rural United States. Immediately at the top of this, I just got to ask a little mic test. There's no way for me to preview audio before we go live when I'm doing this kind of a setup. So let me know if this is coming in okay, or if we're just gonna have to suffer through really terrible audio. But this is also the last Monday of the month, as we like to PJ Holiday Podcast. JGJ absolutely nailed it. This is a chill show. I do have a couple news items that we're going to talk about. I want to spend a little time digging a little more into the recent news of AirDrop being compatible with Androids now, thanks to EU regulators. And it hopefully just kind of cleared the air a little bit. This is one of those things where for people who follow my show, you've probably been aware of a lot of these regulatory actions, but because techies get so crybaby whenever someone brings, oh no, politics, a lot of people are just guessing. I got a comment from someone today on YouTube, saying, well, I mean, like Google had to have hacked this in like a clean room and reverse engineered it, and Apple's gonna block it. And you're like, probably not. Probably not. We'll save that for a little bit later conversation. We're gonna be just sort of letting our hair down, if you have hair, because I only have this scruff on my chin. But the sound quality is good. So a couple people have said volume is a bit low. I'm gonna try. All right, so I'm trying to turn this up through Restream, and I'm gonna talk for a little bit longer now. I don't want to just start messing with stuff. We might just have to go low from here. Anything I turn up will start to clip from my hardware side. So now it's just whether or not I can turn it up from the browser, the streaming interface that I'm using right now. But wherever the chat wants to go, we're gonna go. I do want to get a little housekeeping out of the way, and I'm already seeing a great group of names, some awesome folks in the chat. I'm seeing Sam, what's up? Good morning all from Sam. Simon says, Hypno, wishing everyone a merry time zone. We got Ms. Merkiv saying, hola, Juan. We got Vazico saying hello to the nerdy people. We got Zero Kiru. We've got Ron Guido saying, whoa. Zero Kiro is trying to hypnotize us all. You're getting sleepy, so sleepy. JGJ nailed it that we're doing a PJ podcast today. We've got David Lockwood saying, hey, Juan and everybody. We've got Ramron saying, good evening. Sports Fan Reacts, hoping AirPlay comes to Android since AirDrop is on Android as someone with an Apple TV. Definitely something that we can talk about later in this show. Tangential Tesseract, GoVA just saying, just yell. And Simon says, Hypnosis, I turned my volume up. It's grand. It beats clipped audio, especially because I am going to try and pull this audio to do the replay this week, and especially because I'm on the road. We're going to keep the replay really simple, but the higher quality audio version of the podcast goes out for the replay crew as I take a little time just to clean it up. Darcy saying, hey, Juan, what's up, Darcy? And from Ramron, Juan, I don't know if it's anything you're interested in, but I got my minimal phone now. I already got one from eBay. Is this a device you'd like to check out? I am actually kind of curious in checking one out. I'm going to have to see. I reached out to their PR, and there was someone who was like, well, we want to do this campaign, and you can do this advertising for us. And I was like, well, I really just wanted to see if I could review it. Fell out of contact. So let me follow up with them again, because that would be really cool if we can make something like that happen. So we do want to knock out a little housekeeping. I got a couple things published. These holiday weeks always get weird because I've got like regular reviews that I want to put together, but then I'm also talking to folks on the Patreon like it'd be kind of fun to do a best of 2025 games. what were the best games that hit Android, or what types of things were sort of listicle that we can do. Those are always fun to put together at the end of the year. It's just tough when you're running around and shooting content, and then I want to spend some time and visit family and eat some awesome food. So that's kind of an issue too. So keeping housekeeping a little more a little more efficient. First up, I did put together a video here, AirDrop on Android. How did Google get this working? And this is one of the topics that we're going to expand on this podcast. I put together just sort of a rudimentary, very short form. Again, if you watch that video, it's probably going to be more polished than what I ramble through here on the podcast. But again, it was immediately following this announcement. And I was like, oh, hey, cool. People are going to learn. And this is what folks are finally going to figure out, and the EU regulators and blah, blah, blah. And it was like major publications and writers that really should know better, all jumping to these like, did Google reverse? Is this going to be like Beeper, where Google reversed engineered it and it's tricking Apple servers into thinking Androids or iPhone? And you're like, no, obviously not. No, whatever you said there, totally no. Oh, JGJ saying maybe a holiday gift guide. Something like that could be kind of fun too. I don't know. It's time is an arbitrary metric that we just sort of started measuring one day just to say, well, this is a beginning of a year and this is an end of a year. And really, at any point, the cycle that we make around the sun could be celebrated on any particular day. But I do think it's just kind of interesting that the way that we are sort of programmed as evolved primates, that this is like an anniversary or a repetition or a cycle or something like that, and we pay attention to those things. And it's just the right time of year to kind of contribute and just say, hey, these were things that I thought were interesting over the last year. We've marked this day as the day that cycles to the next year. So there we go. I did have another, I'm really stoked about this one. This is another, this is a review that's currently in early access on the Patreon. The Vivo X300, a petite purple powerhouse with all my P-pop plosives. Not to spoil, because I'm like selecting stuff there in the post. Not to spoil the review, because I don't normally do this. So like Vivo sent two phones for me to check out, the Vivo X300 Pro and the Vivo regular X300. And in years past, I've spent a lot more time with the Pro than the regular, non-Pro version of the phone. Over 2025, I feel like a lot of phone manufacturers were kind of coasting a bit on hardware. And I think a lot of people in this chat would be kind of in the same mindset. We didn't see a lot of really exciting, boundary pushing, disruptive kinds of hardware. But we still saw some. I feel like 2026 is going to be very similar, if not maybe even more compromises depending on what manufacturers go through. Like the Vivo X200 Pro to the X300 Pro is very similar hardware-wise. But you look at something like the OnePlus 13 to the OnePlus 15, and we see a lot of technology advancements in one area, but then outright compromises in another area. We're all trying to balance this manufacturing cost against a retail price that we think consumers will pay. Short story incredibly long, while I am really enjoying my time with the X300 Pro, this is maybe the first, let me say that again. This is maybe the most excited I've been to see a yearly update on the X300, the regular non-Pro phone. So that is a major part of the review that I put together for the X300. And I spend most of my time focused on the Pro, and then I'll do like an overview video, and hey, these are some of the compromises, and this is stuff that the Pro does better, and here's the non-Pro. And it's usually one of just my top-down tabletop, just holding the phones, kind of rambling and talking. I actually put together a proper hands-on, more in-depth review on the X300 this year. because I think it is one of the more interesting phones to talk about as we kick off, we get ready for 2026. It's it's gonna be fun. So I have other things, like I've published a bunch of stuff and I've gotten some shorts out, and that's all well and good. But I'm gonna sort of streamline this into a few of the little news articles that I wanted to talk about and get us kind of into the show proper. Um, from Sports Fan Reacts, when do you think AirDrop comes to non-Pixel devices? Is someone with an S22, or is it up to individual manufacturers to add AirDrop? Hold on to that question. You're asking great questions, Sports Fan. We're going to cover that. And Michael Peppertech, not a lot of mentions of the Apple Wi-Fi Direct standard protocol and how they opened it up. AirDrop interactivity with QuickShare should just be the should be just the beginning. I can't get words out. AirPlay could easily be next. Zero Kiro says, I am clipping sporadically, not too much, but a few times. All right, so I don't think, I can try one thing. I'm gonna try turning down my mic just a little bit, but then like maybe boosting the site just a little bit. So hold on one second. This is a little bit of a balancing act. I'm gonna leave that right there. Okay, so now if I'm clipping, that is clipping coming from the browser, not from the microphone. I don't see where I'm now, so we should be okay. From XP9724. But what about the AirPower though? So I put out a video and it was talking about all of this stuff with AirDrop. And I kept mentioning like how Apple doesn't really like to contribute to standards. And it kind of clicked for me. They only contribute to standards now when they can't monetize and make something completely proprietary. So AirPower, that idea of all the little wireless charging, and they were gonna have a pad, and it was gonna be super high tech and awesome and fancy, and then they couldn't do it. Well, then they contributed to the Qi standard and gave all the MagSafe magnets to Qi 2. Like they contributed to that standard after they had already failed to make their own proprietary solution. It's great. We get to do the thing that's in their own self-interest at the expense of their own customers. And then once they've completely failed to make that, then maybe they'll play ball with other people. Let me take a little drink of coffee here, and then we have a little news that I do want to chew up. Okay. Yeah, okay. I think at this point we might have narrowed it down just what's going on with audio. So I'm going to leave it alone. And from here on, if there are any issues or there's something happening or you're hearing something funky, I think that's on you. All right, let me move this back in. And the first story, oh, and also just like a regular news article week, everything that we're going to be talking about, all the show notes, all of the housekeeping, all the blogs and other periodicals, everything will be available on this week's blog post on somegadgetguy.com. Kicking off the news, I wanted to start with this from Reuters. Oh, who posted this? This was on the private Discord, and I'm going to credit them because this was a good ad. From Steve Becker, Steve DeRoche. He hates it when I say that. So this is coming by way of Reuters, written up by Jeff Horowitz. Meta buried casual evidence of social media harm. We're going to read just a little from the top of this article. Meta shut down internal research into the mental health aspects of Facebook after finding casual evidence that its products harmed users' mental health, according to unredacted filings in a lawsuit by U.S. school districts against Meta and other social media platforms. In a 2020 research project codenamed Project Mercury, Meta scientists worked with survey firm Nielsen to gauge the effect of deactivating Facebook, according to Meta documents obtained via discovery. To the company's disappointment, people who stopped using Facebook for a week reported lower feelings of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and social comparison. internal document said. And this is one of the things that we've been discussing quite a bit. This is not an accident. This is not Meta oopsied. Meta has poured an incredible amount of time, money, effort, research, and science into making sure that their platform is as sticky as possible. And we talk about this a lot on this podcast and other social media networks that are trying to tune their algorithms to also do the same thing. Latch a user and hold on to that user. Meta has been the tip of the spear, has been the bleeding edge of this kind of research. And from everything that we've seen, Meta has honed and refined their approach that if you're miserable and you're angry and you're afraid and you're constantly engaged in conflict and fighting and arguing, you will stay on Meta platforms longer. And so that is entirely why every single Meta product eventually takes this turn into algorithmically sorted content, and then they really weaponize and they financially benefit the people on their platforms that create the most engagement. And we know for Meta, sticky engagement is arguing, conflict, anger, fear, everything that makes your social media experience hateful and toxic. We're now getting better discovery and unredacted documents in lawsuits. This is the kind of discovery that we need to pay attention to. So when we say, like, it's not just like social media is bad for you, the platform has invested significantly in making the platform as terrible as it possibly can be to keep you using it. So that when you do get a dopamine hit, when you do get a surge of adrenaline, when you are engaged in an argument with a family member, when you are railing against, misinformation or fake news or whatever it is that the platform reinforces, Meta is going to make more money. They are taking years off of your life. They are causing stress and strife and family division. They're separating you from your friends. They are causing you harm. And we're all still going, well, but what else can I do? Gotta use Facebook. I have to have Facebook. Gotta be on Twitter. Every social media company is trying to replicate the success of Meta's algorithmic sorting. This is exactly the turn that Twitter took. We had much better tools before to sort of refine and cultivate a chronologically sorted timeline. I wanted to log into Twitter, see what was the most recent stuff posted, and then get out of Twitter. And now we have to jump through so many more hoops to get to that kind of selective feed. And everyone can tell me, oh, but I've done this and I can do that, and you can do this and use this plugin, or maybe there's a web browser thing. And then don't do that. Don't keep justifying, I'm going to keep using the platform that's actively trying to hurt me by making it better, sort of, and then they're going to change how those plugins work, or they're going to remove you from that, just like what Reddit did. They sort of paywalled all their APIs. We've got to stop giving them all of our time, money, attention for how powerful they've become. And this is the kind of data that we can share with family and friends and say, like, hey, this isn't a guess. I'm not just saying this like I have a feeling that Facebook is bad and you have a feeling that you like Facebook. No. This isn't anything about some anecdotal experience. We have active information disclosures in court to the incredible extent to which Facebook operates to try and make us miserable. And they have the internal data on how good it is for you to leave Facebook. The second you unplug from Facebook, everyone feels better. And again, I hate it because I exist in a media as a media entity. I exist in a market where I've got to get viewership on posts if I'm going to have any kind of living, or if I'm going to be able to pay my mortgage. And so I've come to this half-hearted, I'll publish to these sources and these platforms and these sites, but I'm going to try not to engage beyond that. And it's all a stupid game. It's just the stupidest game we could come up with. There were actually back in the olden days of the internet where I could just run a website and people would subscribe through a reader, and then they could see what was new on my website, then none of this would be an issue. But instead, we gave all of the power in our ability to cultivate a feed of public information to the companies that are actively trying to harm us the most. It's great. It's great. Here, I've got oh, a couple people are still mentioning. We will get to the AirPlay thing. Trust me, I'm going to spend most of this show talking about AirPlay. But Simon says, Hypno, jumping in. Meta do bad things? Color me unsurprised. Uh, oh, Michael C. I had a mispronunciation there. That I've ever misquoted. I said casual. Michael correctly correcting me. Causal evidence, not casual evidence. Oh, that was a good one because and my mouth just ran with it, and I did it twice. That's awesome. Yes, correctly. A causal link means this is not merely a correlation. Again, like I was indicating before, but with better words from Michael, this isn't just, oh, we think it's a guess. We have a hypothesis. Once you start saying that there's a causal link and not a casual link, once you start saying there's a causal link between these types of trends, you're making a more deliberate claim as to where or how you think these situations play out. I'm just real good at talking. Michael Peppertech, like how they took photos of young girls and targeted them at men between a particular age to try to attract them to join Instagram. They posted photos and names of the girls. And we also saw like Joseph Gordon-Levitt came out and said, hey, you know, with your AI strategies, you have no bumpers or guardrails on an entire slew of adult media that will be generated by AI and that will probably target underage users, or at least be horrifically accessible to underage users, as we see like every other major AI company now start to quietly investigate how they might embrace adult content and media without also drawing too much scrutiny. And this is all a sad joke that none of this AI market or AI strategy is in any way a viable or sustainable business model. It's not even making money. This traditional Facebook distribution, advertising, and algorithm is unfortunately one of the most successful things we've ever seen on the internet. And now we've got to start detoxing people because it is legit bad for you. From Michael, I haven't had an active Facebook account in 5 years. I can't remember the last time I logged into mine. All of it's on autopilot. I just wanted something on Facebook. I've had, especially when I was at Pocket Now, I had a slew of copycat accounts, which is how I got my Twitter verification check mark back in the day. But I mean, obviously that's kind of toned down a little since I was at Twitter, I was at Pocket Now, and then I went to Newegg. I had a little bit higher visibility, higher, I was more recognizable. But I keep wanting to talk about like Q scores and things like that from my old agent days. But I think I set it up while I was at Newegg to sort of auto-publish everything that went through my blog, and I genuinely can't remember the last time I logged in to see if it's even still working. So there might be some gadget guy account on Facebook, and like maybe the last thing that was posted there was years ago, or maybe it was, you know, a couple days ago. I genuinely have no idea. It's how much I despise Facebook. I actively try not to engage with it in any way that I can. Michael C saying, I was at Emerson College in 2004 through 2008, and we were one of the first like 100 colleges to get access to Facebook. It was a lot cooler back then, no ads and limited to colleges. There was like an early idea of what social media could be. And I think the glory days, the golden age of like MySpace and the early days of Facebook, we were creating these platforms, and they were encouraging people who maybe weren't as tech savvy to contribute content, right? There was really something democratizing about that idea. But anymore today, I think the last area of that that still feels earnest in that kind of let's empower users to share content without trying to squeeze them or disrupt them or outright mentally harm them is Mastodon. And you go to Mastodon and it's going to feel a lot like early Facebook, kind of the heyday of MySpace. It's a little rough around the edges, but it feels a lot more wholesome. Aw, from Darcy, I just noticed the T-shirt. Happy belated Doctor Who Day. Here's to another 62 years. So yeah, I have my Dalek caffeinate. I sort of do the caffeinate because it doesn't have the same number of syllables as exterminate. I do that to the cadence of elevate from that one Christopher Eccleston episode where a Dalek finally defeated stairs. It only took us 50 years, but a Dalek could finally go up and down stairs. From Ms. Merkiv, let alone political polarization. It's like everything that this platform has manipulated, everything that this platform has touched, in some way is made worse for interacting with this platform. And then I'll say things like, I am crazy excited about a VR headset from Steam, from Valve, the Steam frame, and I'm willing to spend up to $1,500 on a headset that is not than an Oculus Quest 3, just so that I don't have to do any business with Facebook. And like I'm supposed to tell you, oh, but to save some money, why don't you do business with this terrible company that has hurt so many millions of people around the globe and influenced elections and has, run roughshod over all of your user data and put a device with cameras and microphones in your home because you'll save a little money. Like, at some point, that shouldn't be okay. At some point, I need to be able to sleep at night and tell people, no, it is actually a financial benefit to me and to the world at large that I pick one platform, like billion-dollar corporation, against another billion-dollar corporation. But the billion-dollar corporation I want to do business with is promoting Linux, is improving emulation, helping people get away from Windows, is opening up all of their hardware so you can kind of tinker and play. They're putting out schematics so you can make your own accessories, or other companies will have an easier time developing for their platform. And they might usher in an entirely new era of mobile gaming thanks to their work in disseminating these better tools out to the community. Or I can give a little less money to the company that is actively trying to destroy the world. Like, the recommendation has to be more than just, it's a little bit cheaper. I hate what tech and marketing have become. Ooh, Michael C. Bam. It should be called Face Crook. Mic drop. Pow. In your face, Zuck. Take that to your yacht. I think on that one, I'm pretty sure we can wrap up the Facebook. Let me switch. Oh, come on. I'm doing this in a slightly different interface and it's slowing me way down. I also wanted to highlight this one. This is a news post from Reuters. No, Politico. Sorry. This is a news post from Politico. I can't see. I have this tiny little window. And so from the article, Brussels knifes, see, like I said, with casual versus causal relationships, words are hard. And I am about half as caffeinated as I usually am while doing this show. The hotel coffee here is really good, but usually I just mainline directly to the pot that I'm drinking. Okay, from Politico. I don't have a byline on this. Who wrote the authors' names? Oh, from Ellen O'Regan. Brussels knifes privacy to feed the AI boom. This is something we just need to keep an eye on. The European Union officials are ready to sacrifice some of their most prized privacy rules for the sake of AI, as as they seek to turbocharge business in Europe by slashing red tape. The European Commission will unveil a digital omnibus package later this month to simplify many of its tech laws. The executive has insisted that it is only trimming excess fat through targeted amendments, but draft documents obtained by Politico show that officials are planning far-reaching changes to the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, to the benefit of artificial intelligence developers. We really need to watch what's happening here. All of the good news that we've been talking about in the tech space lately about how companies are having to do business in fairer, more consumer friendly ways has kind of come through regulatory efforts. These corporations, these companies have gotten so big that even our user behavior, our customer behavior isn't enough to point them in healthier directions. Like you look at this whole surge of AI popularity, shareholders love it, investors love it, but users aren't embracing it. So even if we're opting not to do business with that part of the company, it's still not encouraging the company to do business in a better way. They're thinking we can just kind of keep this on a low simmer until people acquiesce, give up, roll over, and change like their subscriptions, like Microsoft is doing. I finally got my because unfortunately I still need Microsoft Office for work, and so we have like a family plan, so my wife uses it too. We finally got our renewal, and it was like, I know it's coming today, the non-AI classic plan that they made me cancel my subscription to get. I am so viscerally disappointed in Microsoft. You changed my subscription and opted me into a more expensive subscription without my explicit approval. That should be against the law. But they're doing it hoping that people will just, oh, prices are going higher. I guess my cloud Microsoft subscription plan is going higher too, and I'll just have to eat it. And then they can go and report to shareholders that, for all the people who were apathetic enough to not really check out their options, look, there's this surge of interest in people using AI subscriptions now. But they didn't sign on to an AI subscription. You changed their subscription to an AI subscription. And the only way for me to opt out was to cancel my subscription and go to a new classic subscription. See, that is why we need regulators in this space. That is an anti-consumer business hook designed to extract more money out of someone for a service, not an actual benefit that people are seeking out. Look at all these headlines. Oh, there's a surge in popularity for AI search. No, there isn't. There absolutely is not. This is the same quantity of people that are just going to the bar at the top of their browser or literally typing google.com, and all that is Google putting AI junk in front of our results. So the apathy of, well, I searched on this thing and I don't know, that answer looks like it's fine. I'll click on that. Okay, cool, I got the answer I needed. All you did was supplant traffic to actual websites and human authors. You didn't actually encourage or increase the number of people who are like, you know what I want to try? I'm going to go and do an AI search instead of a regular search. So we've got to be really careful here. The GDPR is an incredible force for maintaining user privacy, enhancing security. It gives us all of the tools that help us manage how our user data is being consumed by massive tech corporations, how it can be weaponized against us. And if they're going to start punching holes in it to encourage more AI development in Europe, this is a plan that has huge potential to backfire. Because we're already at sort of the stretched bubble edge. We're already at that point where the bubble of AI feels like it's deflating and it could crater massively. So again, for folks who live throughout Europe, start writing some emails to local regulators, elected officials. Let them know how you feel about this. We don't want to gut privacy protections just so another massive mega corporation can suck my user data. There is no benefit. It is only going to come with catastrophic consequences to users. It's going to be it's going to be a nightmare policing IP. Media entities are going to have an incredibly difficult time of trying to sort of separate themselves from their content getting absorbed. None of this has been good. And you can look at what's happening in the United States and pretty clearly see there's been no net consumer positive. None at all. We're seeing people lose their jobs, or we're seeing people have to change their jobs to babysitting AI nonsense. We're seeing companies and corporations dabble with this and then back away. We're seeing governments really struggle to handle what happens when all of this information gets dumped in a bucket and then is kind of accessible to everyone else. We're even seeing companies and corporations like when Samsung employees were starting to, and then proprietary Samsung information from their silicon department was just available to people searching through stuff on ChatGPT. Everything has been bad. All of it has sucked. So if you know anyone who lives in Europe, reach out and, again, I'll have this article linked. This is from Politico. I'll have this article linked, but, start voicing your displeasure. I feel like European regulators will actually be more responsive than anything we have here in the United States right now. This would be something that I would have during the Biden administration. This is something that I think could have garnered some interest and some traction with Lena Khan at the FTC. She's not there anymore. We changed political administrations, and the FTC and the FCC have been gutted and are now staffed with sycophants to this administration, using the power of those regulatory offices to harm companies that don't fall in line with this presidential administration. We don't want this in Europe. You don't. If mega corporations can't impress upon shareholders that none of this is generating revenue or profit, why would you want to dump this kind of data center style IP theft machine into European systems? It makes no sense. It'll be a short-term boon to local investment, building data centers, maybe some jobs on the ground, and then it's going to be a horrific suck on power, electricity, bandwidth, water, the water rights necessary for these facilities. All of it gets worse, and then you're still not making money. It is a money suck on top of it. AI is yet again another year just, billions of dollars in the red. Microsoft is subsidizing the costs of their AI initiatives, but those AI initiatives are not generating profits. We've been playing with this AI revolution for years now. Years of this language model infestation of all of our platforms and all of our services and all of our subscriptions, and no one's locking in. I know in the tech blogs and on tech feeds, oh, this new Gemini, it infers and it's so much smarter and it's so great. Cool. No one's using it. No one is actively seeking it out at any kind of scale that in any way pays off the incredible investment and the huge amount of resources that Google is dedicating to giving you answers that might not be correct. That's the other thing that kills me, is you got to go into every single one of these conversations from the business perspective and say, how worth it is it to you to have a really expensive system that gets lots of things wrong? Because in computing, we really value accuracy. And we can spend more and more and more money on language models, but there's still always going to be a percentage wrong. So we can spend a little bit of money and those answers are likely wrong, or we can spend a lot of money and those answers are sometimes wrong, but there's always a non-zero statistical event occurring where the answer you get still requires some kind of human validation. If the answers are mostly right, but sometimes wrong, you still have to burn a ton of time verifying what the AI put out. I just did this with my daughter. We were messing around with, she's in this program. this school program called Math Olympia. It's really cool. She's in 4th grade, and they're introducing concepts in Math Olympiads that are kind of like second-year algebra, like how you break down structures or how you formulate. I mean, just like basic things like getting down into factors and primes and things like that. It is really interesting to see like word problems where you have to kind of decipher what the answer is that they're looking for. So we're doing one, and again, this is kind of pre-algebra, is factoring like primes. Like if you have a number of marbles, what is the smallest number of marbles that can be evenly divided by 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 players? And like she has no idea how to do this, right? She's in 4th grade, and even though she's a savvy, she's a smart little whippersnapper, breaking down factors and primes has never been introduced in 4th grade math. In fact, unfortunately, kind of remedially catching up on some of the basics for multiplication and division. It's one of the reasons why we were really excited to start Math Olympiads, just because I feel like some of the brighter students probably feel like they're a bit behind. Vacuum cleaner, room service right next door. Apologies if that is coming in loud and clear. So, we're putting in these numbers, and I'm trying to break down the problem, and I'm telling her like, hey, once you understand this, you can do this with any set of numbers. Like if you want to find the smallest number that is evenly divisible by 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, you can do this using the same process and how we get down to a final answer here. So I'm trying to show her, and I think, let me just see, I ramble, she understands this about me. I put in the actual Math Olympiad question into Google, into Gemini. I just want to see what does it do. So 15 and 16. And I said, what is the sort of smallest number that can be evenly divisible by these 4 numbers? And Gemini, to its credit, got the answer wrong in just that first line summary. Oh, the answer is like 1,049 or something like that. And immediately I go, oh, it's not that. And then it tries to tell you how to break the problem down. So what you've got to do is take 13, and then 14 is these numbers, so you've got a prime here and a prime here, and then 15 are these primes, and then 16 are these primes, so the answer is not 1,049. Okay, it corrected itself, but the main bold text at the top said the answer was 1,049. Oh, I made a mistake. Later, a paragraph down, the answer can't be 1,049. Then it did the actual math that it described and how to do it, and then it got the answer wrong again, and then caught it, and then it tried in a wall of text. So we don't have the Star Trek computer. We don't. That is not what we've got right now. We have a system that tokenizes words and guesses what words will be appropriate to string together to resemble the facsimile of a reply to a question also based on a list of tokens. And you have to be okay with it getting things wrong a lot at an incredible expense in power, in money, in energy, in natural resources, in land. And now also, if you're in the EU and this goes through and the European Commission guts the GDPR, and also it's going to be a big drag on your privacy and security. Let me take another drink of coffee. It's just a bummer. Oh, yeah, from Michael C. The worst part about these AI language models is they just never admit that they don't know the answer to anything. They refuse. They don't want to give up the game that it doesn't know anything. My favorite is also the Chat GPT style, where it just says anything that you say with authority is right. Oh, that's an excellent insight, Michael. That is a really interesting thing that you just said. And it's all just bias confirmation. Because again, I mean, OpenAI is right. Users don't want to be challenged. They want you to just tell them what they think they already know. From Tangential Tesseract, the role of AI in big business genuinely feels like it boils down to cutting down on their human headcount under the expectation that AI will cost less than people in due time. I think the funny thing is, look at every other massive platform that we've done. It starts out cool and free and low cost, and it gets users on board, and then they turn on some ads, and then they turn on some algorithms, and then everything goes to poop. The actual literal process of impoopification. And right now, if you wanted to leverage ChatGPT in an official capacity at any kind of scale, it's really expensive. And from here, this is the stage of AI adoption where it's inexpensive and fun and groovy and cheap. But look at how much like ChatGPT licenses cost. Look at how much you're gonna pay if you want the full professional tiers of like Gemini. This is the cheap place. It's gonna get more expensive from here. And any business that waddles into this space and looks at this and says, oh, well, once it's at scale, it'll get cheaper. You need to fire any executive, middle manager, C-suite, anyone who's that flippin' stupid. Humans are an order of magnitude less expensive to train and deploy than the terrible slop that we're putting into action. Think about right now, we've got $60 billion of infrastructure on hold for data centers in the United States as communities are fighting the deployment of data centers around their areas. That's actually a really heartwarming story in this dystopian AI future that we're trying to create. Imagine what these corporations could do with human talent to the tune of $60 billion. And then think about what is the upkeep of an office building with $60 billion worth of human talent versus the infrastructure required to cool and power $60 billion worth of servers. You know how you power a bunch of coders is you just have tons of caffeine and some snacks. You don't need to like, well, depending on your coders, you might want to put them in a bath from time to time, but you don't need to actively all day water cool your human coders. That was so stupid and I apologize. I just had to kind of crack myself up there. From Michael Peppertech, Google should just pay me to answer questions. I too could make up answers to stuff I know nothing about. And then also just cite random articles like, hey, you put a keyword in here for puppies. So here's a bunch of things I found about puppies. Oh, you know what? You're right. That was a great insight that you just delivered. I love it. Oh, tangential tesseract. Unfortunately, the leadership of the major healthcare provider I work for are, quote, that flippin' stupid. Again, I think you need the grassroots communication. I am close friends with a number of people who work very, very, very corporate jobs that are having these same internal communications. And I like being the one to send in the poison pill. I like being the one to plant the seed. And I'll talk to them and say, hey, you know, just kind of keep reinforcing with your supervisor, move that up the food chain, see about this. And always do it with, hey, this is how I think our company could make the most money. Don't go in with like the feels. Oh, but what about the people and the company culture? And don't we care about this and how to take care of people? No, F all that. Just go in and say like, well, that's dumb. That's going to cost the company a whole bunch of money and then you'll make less money and then everyone's going to be poorer and your investors are going to be pissed off. And then don't break eye contact. Like, I don't know. I mean, I thought you wanted to make more money in this company and this kind of an initiative will just be a drag and it's never going to get cheaper. And then just don't break eye contact. And I've actually, again, I've had some of these conversations. There's not been any distinct action, but it's this like doubt that suddenly creeps into the corporate conversations in the middle management area. The executives are always too well buffered. Like the person who can fly a plane to work in the Seattle headquarters at Starbucks isn't going to be affected by that on the ground. But this constant pressure on how is this being deployed and it's going to be my butt on the line if it doesn't make more money. And you're planting that seed of doubt over and over and over again. And again, you're not appealing to any higher calling or morality or ethics. It's just point blank, I'm in your face, I'm staring you in the eye, and I thought you wanted to make more money. This seems like a bad course of action. And then suddenly they're so much more receptive. I love it. It's like, again, I'm going to speak to you like you're an idiot, but I'm going to focus this on the thing you say you think you care about. Yeah, and Michael C2 again, exactly that. And now look at what's happening to RAM prices, another early example of people getting squeezed by this stuff. I mean, it's just going to keep coming in those cycles, and it's so frustrating. Let me knock this out. We got that out of the way. Oh, where's my mouse cursor? There it goes. On the Patreon, I'm going to detail. I have a ridiculous setup so that I can do this dual screen thing here. I don't actually have a second monitor. I'm using my glasses as a second monitor, so I'm only looking through the preview window on my browser. It's dumb, but it works. So it can't be that dumb if it works. Let me get to the article here. So we were just talking about AI. I'm not going to dig too hard into this because I really want you to read this article. This is coming by way of Benj Edwards over at Ars Technica. Google tells employees it must double capacity every 6 months to meet AI demand. So we were just talking about the drag that AI has on the economy, right? This bubble is getting ready to burst. And now here's Google, Google executives saying, oh, but for us to really make AI happen, let me just read from the article here. Okay. While AI bubble talk fills the air these days with fears of overinvestment that could pop at any time, something of a contradiction is brewing on the ground. Companies like Google and OpenAI can barely build infrastructure fast enough to fill their AI needs. During an all-hands meeting earlier this month, Google's AI infrastructure head, Vadat, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Amin Vadat told employees that the company must double its serving capacity every 6 months to meet demand for artificial intelligence services, reports CNBC. The comments show a rare look at what Google executives are telling its own employees internally. Vadat, a vice president at Google Cloud, presented slides to its employees showing that the company needs to scale the next 1,000 times in 4 to 5 years. It's not profitable. It's not sustainable. It's tying up incredible amounts of electricity, resources, real estate, massive data centers, massive infrastructure. And for Google to deliver what they say they can, that needs to double every 6 months. Have you ever done that? It was like kind of like a joke or a riddle or like it's like a fable or a parable. Um, it's someone talking to like a king. I am doing a terrible job of recounting this story. Someone talking to a king about how they wish to get paid for something, and they've got a chessboard, and like, hey, on the first day for me to do this, I want you to give me 1 grain of rice on that very first square on the chessboard, and then the next day, I want you to double it, just 2 grains of rice. And, so like in the first couple days, it's like, 4 grains of rice and then 8 grains of rice, 16 grains of rice. I'm going to do this job for you. And just look at how inexpensive it's going to be for me to do this job for you. So anyone who knows anything about like logarithmic increase, expansion, that's kind of an impossible payment, right? You get to the end of that chessboard and you're like, whoa, that's way too much rice. I couldn't possibly pay this bill. But if you're dumb and you're just looking at the first couple squares, you think, oh, this is really reasonable. How much rice could that be? I'm going to double it just a couple of times. Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, well, I accept your terms. This is how I'll pay you for this project. I need you to really think the current infrastructure and the current capacity that we're fulfilling with these massive structures today. And also in 4 to 5 years, I do expect there will be some improvements to capacity and density, like how you make a server rack and how you can put in maybe newer lower power processors and lower power GPUs and lower power NPUs that can achieve more work in about 5 years. Sure. But 1,000 times more than what we're currently fulfilling is not possible. It is impossible. We are already stretching our energy demands in local regions to their absolute limits. We're not putting enough green power online, so that means we're falling back to a radical increase in fossil fuels, cooking the planet. And this guy with a straight face is saying, well, in like 4 years, we need 1,000 times more compute density than what we can currently deliver. To do what? What is the business model? What makes Google money on this language model AI platform? At some point, we still don't, we need an answer to that. You're not serving ads. It's not, that's not the, I mean, I guess you are. The search result could just be an ad, but you already have that system in play that's making you 20, 30, 40 billion dollars every fiscal quarter. Why do you need a significantly more costly system that gets information wrong a lot to then also serve ads again? That makes no sense to me. What is the end game in making this a viable business strategy where this company is going to make so much money on top of the 1,000 times increase in compute capacity that they need to build over the next 4 years? We're not talking, hey, next year we're going to double it and then we're going to double it again. That would be 4 times the current compute capacity. They're saying we need to double this every 6 months, at least. How? Makes no sense to me. So I want you to catch this article once again. Google tells employees it must double capacity every 6 months to meet AI demand. And hopefully you're as nonplussed. If you're more plussed than I am, please drop me some comments on this stuff. What is it that we hope to gain out of this system's expansion? Because it makes no sense to me. And it should, if you hear something like that and you're investing in Google, you should think, oh man, there are a bunch of really stupid people at the top making decisions for the operations at Google. I should pull my money out of that company. That does not sound like a safe, secure investment over the next 5 years. Because I hear a lot about all the stuff that they want to spend money on, and I don't hear anything about how they're going to put money in my pocket. That sounds, if I were an investor, I would say that sounds real bad. And then you see the S&P dropping a lot on news of, even Nvidia beating expectations, and then still S&P takes a dive. So I'm not some clever investor guy, but to me this sounds like real bad play. This is not a good strategy for these companies moving forward. So I don't know. Someone clue me. I must be missing something, right? Isn't that how we all feel when we see these companies like hitting the accelerator while they've pointed their vehicles at a cliff? They're about to go off the edge of the cliff, but like, well, they must know something that we don't. Who am I to get in their way and let them tank the entire economy and hurt billions of people around the world and cause a massive depression? They must know what they're doing. All right, that finishes my coffee off there. What do I have left? I think we're into AirDrop. Who wants to talk about Apple and AirDrop now? I think that sounds like a good idea. Let me move this over. We've got the official Google keyword blog post up right now. And I think a lot of folks were already ahead. If you'd asked a question earlier, please pardon, I have the memory of a goldfish. Ask those questions again. Excuse me, and we'll get into this. I do have one comment here just from Tangential Tesseract. Excuse me, man, coffee burps all over the place. Everyone seems to know there's a cliff. The problem is the speedometer is broken and the windshield was painted black. Well, especially for the executives, because they are willfully running their companies into massive catastrophe, in my opinion. All right, so this is from the keyword, the Google blog, which is funny because Google doesn't really care about keys anymore. Android and iPhone users can now share files starting with the Pixel 10 family. And they've got this cute little, where's my mouse cursor? There it is. They got this cute little GIF at the bottom of the article where there's an Android and an iPhone, and Quick Share comes up and it sees the iPhone and they share a file, and then the iPhone says, hey, thanks, and I'm gonna send you one back. And then they send a file and it goes back to the Android, and it's dogs and cats living together, but with acceptance and camaraderie, and isn't this so special and so neat? And I think a lot of people here I think a lot of people in this chat already know where I'm going to go with part of this conversation, but I am going to spend a little time just kind of revisiting what I talked about in my standalone video. I am really glad that Google put some effort behind this. There's some polish. I'm really happy to see that Google had built this directly into Quick Share. So we had Nearby Share and Samsung had Quick Share, and Samsung and Google kind of got together and created one just sort of wireless file transfer protocol. I think the Quick Share moniker, I mean the Samsung side of this, that was the correct play. But we've seen so many attempts in the past at getting into Apple systems that I think there's a natural tendency to sort of assume everything is a hack or a deconstruction, or they reverse engineered, or they're doing something shady. So for example, I'm taking us back a little bit. When we started getting these little apps that could trick iMessage into giving blue bubbles to Android devices, those were hacks. What would happen is your message would be that would look like an Apple device and would trick Apple's iMessage servers into saying, Apple device, give it a blue color. There are obviously some pretty serious security implications for those types of solutions. It's a workaround, it's a hack. It's not really an earnest, good faith attempt at bringing those two platforms or that kind of connectivity together. It's someone who's really clever and said, hey, I found a way to sneak around Apple servers, and you kind of have to be okay with your messages going through a protocol that you can't really observe or control. I don't think it was a great solution. Obviously, Apple found a way to break that, and those companies also faced the potential of legal challenges because what they were doing was kind of shady. It would not have been a consumer benefit for that to go through. So you hear about those stories in the past. Oh, I message this, I message that. And so I think there would be a natural tendency for people hearing the news. Google says you can send files to the iPhone through AirDrop that, well, the last time I heard about something getting into an Apple platform, it was a hack. It was a workaround. So obviously Google did something shady, and Apple will probably do something to break it. Of course, if you've been a listener or a viewer on this podcast, you know better. You're a clever clog. And instead, what we're looking at, and what is not detailed at all, this is one of the things I find really frustrating. I'm going to give Google kudos that they built this directly into Quick Share. So the main interface that we as Android users see for file sending, for file sharing, is going to remain exactly the same. That is great. And that is actually not common for Google. I mean, think about all the issues we've had with messaging, going from sort of just basic SMS apps per phone. Every phone had a different SMS app. Then we had Hangouts, and Hangouts was cool, and it was this way to kind of tie together your texting and instant messaging. And then for some reason, Google got rid of that and started giving us Allo and Duo. And then we came back full circle to Messages as an SMS, but also RCS delivery platform. Google is really bad at this. Even just like Nearby Share to Quick Share. Different name, slightly different interface. Google sucks at doing this so bad. So we actually should say, hey, I'm so happy you found a way to communicate with AirDrop on the iPhone, and you didn't make it a separate app or a separate protocol or a different name like iOS file share, and then you have quick share for Android. It couldn't be easier. I wouldn't have put it past Google engineers to like fork it or do something stupid that would have been a massive consumer drag. And again, you have to think about all the other people who don't listen to tech podcasts and going out there and saying like, oh, but it's so easy. You just open up this completely other app that's called something different, and then you can send files to iPhones. Isn't that so easy? We have quick share, and quick share can talk to AirDrop. And that's as much as we got to handle. That's it. So Google deserves some huge praise just for not borking, not doing what they normally do and screwing up a new protocol or a new service or a new system, because they are properly really bad at that. But one of the things that's frustrating is like we're looking through this article like down here in the corner. I have it just in the screen share. There's no mention of how this came about. And this is another one of those things that I'm sure Google and Apple's relationship is very corporate, right? Google pays Apple billions of dollars a year to be the default search on Apple products. Apple's going to be paying Google $1 billion a year to be the default AI powering the new features in Siri. They work together a lot. And so I'm sure there's probably some communication. I have no evidence of outright collusion. I have no inside information. This is my rampant speculation. But I bet that there was some kind of sign off. There was probably some communication going back and forth between Google and Apple about how this was going to be presented. And I'm sure Apple doesn't want to make a lot of noise about this. So in this keyword blog post, there is no mention of how iPhones have recently adopted for wireless communication and file sharing. In the keyword article, in the actual Google blog, we just have Google, oh wait, let me scroll back up. We just have Google patting themselves on the back. We built this with security at its core, protecting your data with strong safeguards that were tested by independent security experts. It's just one more way we're bringing better compatibility that people are asking for between operating systems, following our work on RCS and unknown tracker alerts. So I appreciate, like, for example, there was no point in relitigating that it was really Apple's fault that iPhones were terrible at messaging. Everyone would complain when an Android was in the group chat, but Apple dragged their heels on using a better messaging protocol for that to fix. There's no point in relitigating that Apple was the driving force behind making AirTags a privacy and security nightmare. Apple did not contribute to the Bluetooth special interest group, update the Bluetooth spec, and give us better tools to make sure that these products weren't used by nefarious individuals. Google actually did some good work there. The first workarounds for Android users for AirTags didn't come from Apple. They came from Google saying, hey, we're going to protect our users, even though Apple really just couldn't give a poop. We're going to do this and try and fix this situation. But it dragged Google for 2 years before they could put out their own updates, their own new trackers, and everything that went into the Google Find My network that got harmed by Apple's business practices. And so here, I wish that there was some mention of the regulatory policy that went into this. This wasn't Google just figuring out how to crack AirDrop. Google's blog post here actually contributes that somehow Google did something tricky with our work on RCS and unknown tracker alerts. We did this unilaterally without Apple's support, and that's not what the case is. See, we talked about this, I know we talked about this back last year. It was back in 2024. The EU was conducting a lot of investigations into Apple's business practices and was delivering these mandates about how Apple would be forced to start opening up and utilizing global standards. The first instance of this was getting Apple to finally embrace and to switch to RCS as the the backbone of their messaging service. And that's why now we can send a higher quality file to an iPhone. We get like, when someone's typing, I can see that they're typing. Union back in 2024 issuing this edict saying you need to be better about compatibility so that this is a more competitive landscape. And the thing that's really frustrating about that is that this has always been one-sided. Apple has always initiated these types of standards breaking situations so that there is a walled protection for their users, and then their marketing spins it so that it looks like everyone else is inferior. I think the perfect example of that is when I send a photo from an iPhone to another iPhone, that photo comes in super high quality. But when an Android sends me a photo, those photos look like garbage. So if you don't know what's going on, you just assume that Androids have terrible cameras. Like that's still somehow a truth in 2025, that we just all use terrible cameras on our phones and we just haven't seen the light and used the gooder cameras on iPhones. But if you also know a little bit more, it's still, well, Androids can't use iMessage, so they don't just work. And it still makes the Android look like the inferior player when really it was the iPhone breaking this for the iPhone user all along. The most frustrating thing about this is, are all of the iOS and Apple fans who are complaining about Apple being forced to do something by a regulator, it's really making their products better first. At the end of this, you have to be a terrible, awful, horrible, hateful. I lack the venom in words to properly describe how poopy that person would be to say, I don't want a better photo from a family member who has an Android. But that's the kind of bullying and insular team building that Apple's marketing has created. I don't want my product to work better so I can get better photos from Thanksgiving dinner from my aunt who has a Samsung. Oh, it's another green bubble. You see the social pressure that Apple puts on their own users to put on everyone else who doesn't just fall in line and buy everything Apple. That hateful conditioning from Apple marketing, where again, Tim Cook testified before Congress, oh, we're totally against bullying. We're not bullies at Apple, except for all the ways that we bully everybody. So, this situation comes down, and it's pretty crazy. 2024, we saw the EU mandate better interoperability, and they specifically listed and they specifically cited services like AirDrop. But for people who were asking, I can't remember now, I'm sorry, who else was asking about this. Let me get to the actual Commission Digital Markets and I can read this along. I've got to scroll down. So the first major aspect of this DMA decision, excuse me, and there are actually two different decisions. Let me see if I can scroll here so it looks a little bit better on screen. Oh, and also let me just accept only essential cookies. There we go. The first set of measures concerns 9 iOS connectivity features predominantly used for connected devices such as smartwatches, headphones, or TVs. The measure will grant device manufacturers and app developers improved access to iPhone features that interact with such devices. Example, displaying notifications on smartwatches. Faster data transfers, example, peer-to-peer Wi-Fi connections and near-field communications, and easier device setup, example, pairing. So this is a really big deal because it immediately calls in and highlights what Apple's business policy and business strategy has been for like the entire era of the iPhone, especially getting into like the iPhone 5. use the good stuff from a standard. Take Bluetooth, but then break things in Bluetooth and then come up with proprietary things on top of Bluetooth that only our users can use. Take SMS messaging and break any kind of compatibility and then put a layer on top that is proprietary to our users so it's harder for an Android and an iPhone to message directly. Take Wi-Fi. There's a method in Wi-Fi to share files directly. It's called Wi-Fi Direct. But we want all the good stuff from Wi-Fi, but let's break it. And then on top of that, we're gonna put a proprietary communication layer that only works Apple to Apple. And you see, you keep putting pressure on the market to deliver these things, and then you keep breaking what the standards have come up with. So I know Apple, I mean, I casually say Apple hasn't been contributing to these standards. I bring up AirTags as a great example of how Apple did not foresee a harm in the market and completely just went with what was going to be in their best interests to milk more money out of their customers to the detriment of everyone else. It was horrifically negligent, that's the word. It was horrifically negligent on their part, and they should face much stronger pushback. There are still some ongoing like class action lawsuits against AirTags. Apple needs massive market corrections. So the EU has come in and said, hey, this is not okay. So the Wi-Fi Alliance has come up with an evolved version of Wi-Fi Direct called Wi-Fi Aware. And the EU in 2024 said, you gotta open this up. And so now Apple has been forced to comply with the standard of Wi-Fi Aware, and that is included in iOS 26. And I think this is one of the reasons why we've seen all of these apps coming from like Xiaomi and Oppo. OnePlus has, oh, now I can wirelessly send files to, they install this app and it works just like AirDrop, but you had to install another app. So they came up with a user interface for Wi-Fi Aware, and then our Androids have Wi-Fi Aware support. Now we can wirelessly send and receive. But if you go and you look up Apple's, and I'll have a link to it too, Apple has published developer documentation on Wi-Fi Aware and using that as an extension. It's like now it's a plugin for AirDrop. So Google was the first company to make this. Well, actually, Google could have been, had to have been the first company. No one else was going to be able to change Quick Share. Like Oppo couldn't just take Google Quick Share and change it so that it would work with iPhones. That would have been impossible. But Google took some time, and we knew Apple wasn't going to bring this in until iOS 26. So Google and Apple, there's an extension, now there's a plugin. Quick Share can now talk to AirDrop. This was always what the EU had mandated. It took a year, but that's actually pretty good in the grand scheme of how long these companies can drag their heels. When Apple is usually forced to comply with some kind of edict, it could be 2 to 3 years of them dragging their heels, like AirTags. They purposely harmed the market for 2 years as the exclusive solution for little Bluetooth tracker devices, and they were not interested in accelerating, because then that would have given Google some better tracker tech that they could have used. It only worked to Apple's benefit to slow that down as much as they could. So we get Wi-Fi Aware. Now Google can use this as an extension for Quick Share to talk to AirDrop as an extension for Quick Drop. I think there have been a lot, like, so for example, I got into a conversation with Michal over on Threads, and I shouldn't have, because Threads is the place where you just go to argue with people. I think guys like Michal are way too hyper-focused on, I think he bristled when I said, Google doesn't deserve as much credit as we've been saying. European regulators deserve the bulk of the credit, because the only reason why Apple was forced to open up AirDrop and allow for a plugin like Wi-Fi Aware was because of this change to the DMA. I hate that I'm going to say this, but it's Article 6, Chapter 7. It's Article 6.7, y'all, the DMA. Look up the DMA and do Article 6.7. Haha, 6.7, get it? Hello, fellow children who also enjoy the nonsensity of 6.7. It is. It is actually Article 6.7. um, I said, you know, EU regulators deserve the bulk of this credit because they are the ones that put the pressure on Apple so that Apple would be. I think from Mishal's standpoint, he got way too fixated on whether or not Apple's proprietary wireless solution was being deprecated. And that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the end user. It doesn't matter to iPhone users. It doesn't matter to Android users. What matters is if I send a file from one iPhone to another iPhone, it works over Wi-Fi. If I send a file from an Android to an iPhone, it works over Wi-Fi. Why does it work over Wi-Fi? Because Apple was forced to adopt the full Wi-Fi standard. That's what matters. If Apple is still using the proprietary communication for iPhones and Wi-Fi aware for Androids, and they feel like that's worth their development time to keep two different wireless systems in operation, and they don't eventually deprecate the proprietary one, which would be stupid, but that's what they want to spend their money on, fine, they can do that. But it doesn't change the fact that the main reason why we're here today, a year ago, they said Apple has to open this stuff up. And that's what they're doing. Now, if you also notice, in that paragraph that I read, I just want to, come on. There we go. In that paragraph that I just read, the measure will grant device manufacturers and app developers improved access to iPhone features that interact with such devices. Example, displaying notifications on smartwatches. So this one also has some interesting potential. So I'm a big fan of this revival for Pebble. I'm still waiting for my Pebble Time email that they'll start shipping the fancier Pebble Times. I should have gotten the Pebble Core, just the black and white e-ink version, but I really wanted the replacement. I put in a pre-order for the original Pebble Color Time 2, and I wanted that watch again. But obviously, like, they're going first, they're gonna go through the second batch after that. We on this podcast, and I did this in a standalone video too. You can find my video, I think the title's something like Pebble Smartwatches Are Back and Apple is Scared of Competition. Apple is terrified of competition. Every time you pick up a Garmin or a fitness tracker, an Amazfit, some kind of third-party fitness watch, it's designed to be maximally compatible with the iPhone. If you built that watch for Android, there's way more you can do with the watch. It can be more of a computer. The guys running Pebble published this long post for all the people who get a Pebble watch, pair it with an iPhone, and then complain that it can't do all this stuff. They act like it's Pebble's fault. It is not Pebble's fault because Apple terrified of actual competition, so they build silos and walled gardens. So if you're making a watch and you pair it to an iPhone, that functionality is radically reduced from what the Apple Watch gets to benefit from. So the Pebble and the Pebble team wrote out all of the reasons, all the things that are blocked from their watch on iOS, but all the things that you can do on an Android that are pretty much the same. Like, again, if you do the work to make your sort of companion app on the phone and you interact with the APIs and everything's talking, the Pebble watch can do anything a Wear OS watch can do. There's very little that's held back from a hardware developer. Now it's gotten more difficult because there's no one Wear OS compatibility app layer like there used to be. So you do have to make your own sort of framework from the ground up. It really hurt companies like Mobvoi. They had to put a lot more effort into making that companion app. Fossil went out of business on smartwatches because of those changes that Google made. Google made it more difficult, but you can still do it. So when we look at this edict, when we look at this decision coming from the DMA, we're potentially going to allow for more of those interactions that are compatible with iPhones to start taking place on other accessories as well. And I don't have it pulled up here. I'm going to have to try and find it. The maze of articles, the more recent publication from the European Commission on the DMA actually lists out several other Apple platforms. One of those other platforms is AirPlay. The DMA does list AirPlay as one of the services that Apple needs to examine how the business practices impact consumers. The entire Apple declared an anti-consumer walled garden, a monopolistic business practice. And if you want to view it as, well, you could always just leave and go to an Android, that is one idea of competition. I agree with the DMA's assertion that they have a monopoly on Apple products and services. And it's not adequate to say, spend a ton of money on Apple products, spend a ton of money on Apple services, and now if you don't like their business practices, throw all of that away. I think that is insufficient and does not actually address the issues with the pressure that Apple can now put on a market, being a $4 trillion market cap corporation. It is actually fair to say they have a 100% monopoly on Apple products and services. So opening up AirDrop, opening up AirPlay, making interoperability more accessible based on the standards that Apple is using. Because again, Apple uses Wi-Fi, they use NFC, they use Bluetooth, they use USB. Apple didn't invent any of these protocols. They contributed to the development of these protocols, but they didn't make their own thing. So it's not okay for Apple to benefit from the hundreds and thousands of other companies that contribute to these specs. The Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, USB, NFC, all of these things that make our devices possible, that interact with the internet. All of those are maintained, supported, and improved by a conglomerate of thousands of companies. And then Apple gets to just wade in and say, well, we want this, and we want this, and we want this, and then we're gonna break it, and we can't let our customers talk to anyone else. That's not okay. If Apple wanted to make their own USB completely from the ground up, not utilizing any other intellectual property, their own bespoke cabled connection, they could totally do it. They should. Don't use all the stuff that every other company has contributed and supported. Make your own. And then I would actually have a lot less issue with them taking an approved spec and breaking it. If they want to make their own Wi-Fi, their own wireless communication standard, and not use any IP, not use any of the backbone of the Wi-Fi Alliance, all of the work that every other company has put into it, then they can go off and go do it. And they can go to every single country on the planet and get the regulators to certify it and approve it and make sure it doesn't conflict with other wireless standards. I say more power to them. But we know they're not going to do that because that would be a stupid use of their resources, right? That would be horrifically expensive, hard to implement. It would really lock in. You would not be able to use an iPhone on traditional Wi-Fi, so you'd still need a Wi-Fi radio unless you could convince all of your customers to also buy Apple Wireless Data Hub. They're not going to do that. They're not. I mean, some will. A lot of tech influencers will roll over and lap that up and just lick every boot that comes there. I mean, really, guys, if you think about it, Wi-Fi is like really old. So really, we need Apple to make a new Wi-Fi. And they're idiots, right? We saw that, I forget who it was, complaining, like, why should Apple be forced to use USB-C? USB-C is like a 5-year-old connector. How come they make them do it? What they should do is let Apple come up with a new cable connector that everyone could use, and then you would license it from Apple, and everyone would have to pay tons of licensing fees for Apple to make that. And that guy was kind of laughed at. But again, you're going to have all those bootlickers for the for the influencers that make all their money on Apple videos. Let me take a drink of water here real quick. So the breakdown on this specifically, as we get into, I just want to highlight this. Then we're going to go into comments here, and I promise I'm going to like actually respond because I'm getting some great questions here. The post that I saw first came from ditto.com, cross-platform P2P Wi-Fi, how the EU killed AWDL. AWDL is the proprietary communication language that iPhones used so they could send files to each other on top of Wi-Fi. So everyone else, we had Wi-Fi direct. We had a way that you could send files wirelessly, point to point, peer-to-peer connection. And Apple said, well, no, we don't want iPhones to be able to send or receive files to Androids. We want to make communication between platforms as painfully difficult as possible. So they wrote their own layer on top of Wi-Fi. Now, this is what guys like Mishal are saying. Well, the EU doesn't deserve all this credit because Apple hasn't deprecated AWDL. And I think that misses the point. It's not whether or not Apple is going to completely replace their proprietary layer, their proprietary language. It's that they were forced to allow for another communications standard, an actual standard from the Wi-Fi Alliance. That's what's allowing us to talk between these different platforms. So it's cool. It's super groovy. Google got on board and delivered us a blessing in making it a part. We didn't have to do anything different. We don't have to make our family and friends jump through a bunch of hoops to send files wirelessly. It's going to be so much more seamless and so much easier than like, oh, I'm going to send you this file, but first you have to install this app, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to look up, but in this app, it looks different than AirDrop, and trust me, it's still secure, it's still safe. We don't have to do any of that. It's now like a plugin for AirDrop that it can use this other proper standard. If they keep AWDL, cool, I guess, but we don't have to worry that there's a difference there. If anyone's kind of saying like, oh, but I don't know, EU regulators deserve all the credit here. I mean, that should just be on lock. There's a lot of comments here. I do want to get through some of these. Oh, and also, Bionic Scoop jumped in and said, Scoop, what's up? He gave me a 1. Oh, so Michael is talking about some of the other videos that people have published on this. DHMRE just made a video explaining why nobody should really buy iPhone trackers anymore. They're just too limited compared to the competition. I think we might be getting to a point. I don't believe AirTags are listed in the DMA exactly the same way as AirPlay. But the underlying technology, when we talk about Bluetooth and UWB, we at least already have tags that are cross-compatible. This to me is the big fear. If you buy AirTags, you're stuck. You can only use those AirTags with Apple devices. If you buy a Chipolo or a Pebble Bee, you can decide to use that tag on Google's network, on Apple's network, smaller, but I think on the Pebble Bee app, you can register your Pebble Bee tracker and only use it with other people using the Pebble Bee app. I don't think that's going to be very popular, but that is something I think that you can still do with a Pebble Bee tracker. I might be totally wrong. Please don't quote me on that. That's just the foggy memory I've got on only half of the caffeine I usually drink. So for Apple's AirTags, I would actually kind of agree. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy those just in case. The off chance that maybe 3 years into the future, I might decide maybe I do want to try a Pixel. Maybe I do want to try a Samsung. Maybe I do want to try a OnePlus. Well, now my AirTags don't work. And my AirPods are not very functional on Android either. See, you see, Apple tries to make it as brutally painful as possible. But if you're still using the Apple Find My network, I think there are some good solutions where you can still go buy some tags. They're competitively priced. They're feature similar. I don't think Pebble Bee is implementing UWB at all. But even just through Pebble Bee's current implementation of Bluetooth, it's pretty good at doing distance. So the strength of the Bluetooth signal being tracked for how close or how far you are has actually worked pretty well. It's not as pinpoint accurate as UWB, but for the times like I lost my keys and they were in the couch and I was able to go downstairs and you're like, oh, where are they? Where are they? Okay, they're in the couch. Like that worked. It wasn't a tremendous deficit. Also, Sorry, I've got a couple comments here from Michael. Some Apple fans are really mad about Apple had their hand forced with RCS and USB-C and so on. It's not enough to succeed. Others must fail. Gore Vidal. I wholeheartedly embrace anyone who wants to quote Gore Vidal in my podcast chat. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I find troubling is that kind of thing was to Apple users' benefit. It's better for iPhones to use RCS. It's better for iPhones to use USB-C. It's better for Apple consumers. You get better accessories. You get better products. You don't have to pay insane licensing fees on Lightning connector cables anymore. It was always better. But again, you've got a bunch of bootlicking influencers. But why should Apple have to be forced to do that? Because they're a monopolistic company. They're engaging in anti-consumer business practices. Their technology was not better. Apple users were happy to pay more for inferior technology that was less compatible and more expensive. Yeah, at some point, a company's regulators should have an interest in examining those business practices, and Apple deserves incredible amounts more scrutiny. And all of our devices get better. But you have to pay attention to regulators and, oh no, did I say regulations? Did you know? That's politics. Are we talking about politics? Oh, I'm a techie. I can't handle politics. Oh, I was okay with him talking about technology, but why'd he have to go and get political? Because, numbnuts, you get better stuff. From Michael C2, unfortunately, there's no way around this, Michael. You're right. Hugh Jeffries had a video from yesterday or the day before explaining how Apple intentionally breaks apps that could easily still work on their older iPhones as well. This is one of the things that I think also moving forward, Apple's pain points hit their own customers first. When it came to AirTags, I think the bulk of us in the techie space were concerned about AirTags being abused because Androids couldn't see them. But you know who else couldn't see them? Were the millions of people that were still using older iPhones that couldn't be updated to properly support all of the new wireless connectivity of the AirTag. Older iPhone owners were also at risk. And look at all the people out there, the millions of devices that are now out of support, they're not getting updated, and Apple's fine to kind of cut them off too. So other things like getting updates for RCS, getting updates for just better AirDrop compatibility. If you can't get iOS 26, you are cut off from any of these improvements. And I will say, it's still one of the small but tangible benefits of being on Android. Because I am viscerally disappointed in how Google is handling AOSP and actual open source software and the future of where Android could go. We still have some advantages like Google Play services. Too often, Google leverages that against manufacturers who want to build competing devices. Totally appreciate that. Google is not innocent of a lot of really shady anti-consumer business practices too. But when we get updates to core feature compatibility, that comes as a Play Services update. And even when you're out of official support for your device, Play Services updates can still go back to like Android 8, depending on what's being updated. So you can go into your phone and click on Play Services, and sometimes you'll see an update, and that might bring enhanced functionality to something that you didn't have before. I think now we're starting to kind of eclipse Android 8, and I think we're kind of moving into like Android 10. But going back 8 generations of Android, we could still find these little feature updates, feature improvements to different devices. Like how we got QuickShare went back 5 generations of Android. Now, if you want to have enhanced AirDrop that can talk to an Android, your phone has to be on iOS 26. It can't be on iOS 15. If your phone tapped out at iOS 15, that's too bad. Again, so this notion of Apple superiority in software and updates and longevity isn't really true either. You might not get the Android operating system number, but you could still get feature improvements and functionality improvements that benefited everyone. It's just kind of a bummer too. Again, it's all marketing, it's all perspective, it's how Apple makes their commercials, and it's not really the truth. But that's what passes for the vast majority of consumer education and technology is, what did Apple say in their commercial? What's a computer? Oh, a couple people joking about iPhone autocorrect. It's really bad. I have from Huff and Puffin. Have you heard about the LibraPods project? Basically, opens up AirPod features that were hidden to Android users. I think it's cute, but also, and I understand it. There's like a social pressure to at least like look like you fit in and to conform. The Think Different company is the company that most squeezes their customers to conform practices. There is nothing special about an AirPod. I like, as an audio nerd, go spend money on a company that's going to do something interesting with your earbuds. Like, I'll handily put OnePlus buds up against AirPods any day of the week, and the features, the functionality, the sound quality, not only going toe to toe, but often besting the AirPods, and you'll pay less. Or get them for free with your phone, depending on where you're shopping the OnePlus phones. I just like, you've got Edifier doing planar magnetics in true wireless. You've got Status Audio, the new Status X. Those are really fun triple drivers. You've got a whole bevy of low-priced and mid-priced competitors. I kind of like. I mean, I don't daily drive them, but the new Sound Peats are kind of fun. They're interesting. Like, they're actually go and support another business. Why spend all this time and effort and software on like, but now I can use AirPods with my Android. Cool, I guess. Fine. But go get some good earbuds that were probably less expensive. Or go get something that's going to focus on what you actually like, not just a generic one size fits most, lowest common denominator, but most expensive kind of earbud. Like, go treat yourself to something exotic or something fun, and you'll save money, and you'll still end up with something you really dig, not just something that looks like you belong to the same team as everyone else. Like, to me, it actually does make that kind of statement as like a kind of fashion. I don't like white earbuds. I don't want people to think I use AirPods. I don't. Oh, Bionic Scoop, as a longtime Pebble stan, I need it. I want that Pebble time too, so bad. Michael Peppertech with the pun of the show. So, Pebble interactions are just a stone's throw away. If I were the folks at Pebble, I would be very interested in what the DMA chooses to enforce next. They said that they were going to start pressuring Apple to open up protocols for things like accessories. Look at all of the smartwatches that are just dumb, stupid, basic fitness trackers. But we know they could do more, but why put the effort into making a whole bunch of extended functionality if more than half of your potential user base can't use it on an iPhone? They'll just be upset. So you go to an Amazfit smartwatch, and you look at the page notifications, and it's got this for mapping, and oh, it can do that with your media and all this other stuff, and then there's a little asterisk, but not on iPhone. So you get that watch and you pair it with your iPhone, and you're like, but none of this stuff works. These guys are scamming. But no, it was Apple's fault. Apple's marketing makes it look like everyone else is the jerk when Apple is the jerk. But how do you fight a corporation with a $4 trillion market cap that spends kind of almost the most on media and messaging and has like a death grip on tech media? Look at any larger tech channel How often do they ever just outright say something like, hey, we can't give this a purchasing recommendation? There are too many compromises. Apple's iPhone 12 doesn't really work on 5G if you want good battery life. We would recommend waiting until Apple can figure out or optimize, or maybe the iPhone 13. Who did that? No one outright said, we don't think you should buy this phone. When the Galaxy S22 was overheating like crazy, I didn't have any problem saying, hey, I really don't think you should buy the Galaxy S22. This is really not a good performance price device. Stick with the Galaxy S20, or hopefully we'll get a better chip next year that doesn't run this hot. You know, like having that kind of consistency in your reviewing where you can tell your audience that there's an integrity to how you come to a conclusion on a product. Instead, all of those outlets just, well, the carriers say to turn off 5G if you're one of those stupid people who cares about battery life, I guess. Because whatever Apple did, they probably did it right. I don't think anyone could do better than Apple. And then the iPhone 13 comes out, and wouldn't you know it, they have a bigger battery, and everyone's like, see, Apple fixed all the battery problems. Except for all the iPhone 12 owners who had terrible battery life. Good job, tech media. Really holding their feet to the fire there, aren't you? Michael Peppertech saying Samsung Galaxy watches and Pixel watches have exclusive features that won't work with non-Galaxy or non-Pixel phones. Will they be forced to change that as well? What doesn't work on a Pixel if you were to pair it with a OnePlus? Because as long as you install the Fitbit app, you should be fine. Now, to that same point, you're talking to the guy who refuses to buy and use Samsung products on the daily and regularly points Samsung watches denying you health tracking features when you pair a Samsung watch with another phone manufacturer. So, you know, I'm the guy who says, yeah, sure would be nice if regulators could examine Samsung's business practices as well. Because to that same argument that I just made before, Samsung has a monopoly on Samsung products. It's just Samsung has a much smaller slice of the pie. So it makes sense to me that if we were to enact meaningful regulations that have a consumer benefit, we would want to work from the top down. We would not want to impact smaller businesses first while the massive corporations are allowed to continue to engage in monopolistic business practices. If you're going to fix a problem of monopolies, you start with the biggest offenders first and work your way down. But I'm earnestly asking, I'm not trying to be snippy. I've played with Pixel watches. I haven't spent a lot of time with the Pixel watch paired to another device, but as far as I knew, there wasn't anything denied the Pixel watch when I paired it to my OnePlus. But please correct me if I had that wrong or if I just missed something when I was doing the testing. But that's also why I like OnePlus. Everything on my OnePlus watch works if I pair it to any other phone. It's dumb to support a company that's going to do that. It's dumb to support Samsung. Oh, I just love my Samsung Apple Watch Ultra clone that gets 2 whole days of battery life, and I can't use the heart rate and ECG features if I switched it to another phone. I mean, guys, that's dumb. It's real dumb. This watch has 4 days of battery life and doesn't look like an Apple Watch. And if I pair it to another device, I install OHealth and everything on this watch works with that other phone the way it should. So why are we giving money to companies that outright try to scam us and harm us? But seriously, please let me know what on the Pixel Watch might be locked up, because I would really like to know that for my future Google Pixel hater editorials, how disappointed I am in Google's current hardware strategy. Aditya Nil. Sorry, I can't even go through your comment, but it did make me chuckle. Thank you, Aditya. So Michael Peppertech, could Apple keep their separate methods but adopt a universal method as well? Like you get certain features exclusive to their protocols but aren't locked out from other casting and wireless standards. And that's what they've done. You still have a green bubble on an iPhone, even if you're using RCS. You don't have all of the functionality of RCS and you don't get all of the functionality of iMessage, but you at least have iPhones using a current communication standard. Michal might be right. Maybe they haven't deprecated AWDL, but if they haven't, you still have the core functionality of being able to send over Wi-Fi. And if they're still using their own proprietary protocol to communicate, cool. But functionally, it shouldn't look different and it shouldn't work different. It should work the same way. That's sort of complying with the EU mandate here. Apple is really notorious for maliciously complying. Like, we'll let you do this, but then we'll break it so that it then doesn't work, even though we're complying with the letter of the law. They did that with app stores, right? They did that with, well, we'll let you use another payment system, but if you do a payment off of the Apple App Store, then we still get a cut. You have to approve your app through us to work on the iPhone. And so we know how many apps, you have to audit and tell us how many apps were installed and then how many people paid for services on that app through a third party, and then you'll give us 30% of what you got off the App Store. Phil Schiller said, hey, don't do that. If you make more noise about this, it's bad for us and we'll end up making less money in the long run. Tim Cook said, do that, and broke off App Store payments and forced developers to self-audit to then give Apple a cut. And then a judge said, wow, that's really a betrayal of the spirit of this decision that came down against you. And now an Apple executive, I think, is still under investigation with the possibility of going to jail over in that case. So anytime these situations come up, especially in the Tim Cook era of Apple, we should not be giving Apple some kind of benefit of the doubt or some kind of kinder consideration. If we go to the worst aspect, the worst interpretation of their business strategies, more often than not, it's been true. We look at how iMessage breaks up families if they try to use Androids and iPhones in the same household. That was a clear intention from Apple product designers. We look at Phil Schiller trying to talk Tim Cook down on payments outside the App Store. Tim Cook went full evil on how do we squeeze more money out of our customers and how do we squeeze more money. This hurt their developers and betrayed the court case that went in. And we look at AirTags. Well, these could possibly be used and abused. And this could possibly like hurt people care. We're Apple. Every single time. Look at like the iPhone Air. We are trying to remove features from the phone and keep people paying more for their phones. You buy the iPhone Air, you're literally buying half the phone that an iPhone 17 Plus would have been. The DOJ invested at Apple in 2024 for anti-consumer business practices, and in those disclosed communications were Apple executives saying, actually, iPhones are too good. We need to find a way that we can scale this back. Every single time this comes up, everyone wants to rush out and give Apple like some kind of fairer consideration. And there is no evidence to support the idea that Apple deserves fair consideration when every single business move over especially over the last 10 years has been to hurt to make more money when they're already like one of the most profitable companies in existence ever. People talking about standards, DTNL, AWDL, awesome ways to download. Just like Apple intelligence, it's awesome ways, Apple ways to download. Tangential tesseract. You know you're in crazy territory when people start trying to argue points that are identical to satire. um, from Michael Peppertech, you do have to set it to everyone versus contacts only for AirDrop to work with QuickShare. So that's also kind of true on QuickShare too. And now, obviously, this is Apple's like last little pain point, right? Is we can't just make it work. We're not letting them really use all of AirDrop, just like they're not really using all of iMessage when they move over to RCS, and they're not using all of RCS either. But that being the consideration is much easier to explain, because I'm sure people have been in situations like look at when there's an event at my daughter's school and I shoot some photos. I'm not, even though I'm like in a bunch of these parents' contacts, really it kind of doesn't work unless you open it up to everyone. And in fact, I leave a lot of my phones just everyone in general. And then if something pings my phone, I can say, well, no, don't send me that, right? There's like, there's always going to be some Apple machination. But this isn't, hey, to do this, I've got a OnePlus. So there's an Oppo app that you install on the iPhone, and it's going to look a little like AirDrop. But don't worry, it's still totally secure. And I'm going to send you this from my phone to the Oppo app, and you've got to set it up. And for it to really work, you've got to do this and kind of approve these permissions. And it's real scary because it's asking for all these permissions, but it's totally fine. Trust me. Wait a minute, why are you walking away? Or if I go up to that person and say, oh, you can't see me because I'm on Android, just open it up to everyone. Oh, okay, cool. And then I send them the file, and then it's fine, right? That's what we're pushing against. Is the solutions up to this point have all been dramatically worse. Man, I'm way behind on this chat. You guys are awesome. Brian Glaze. Oh, dude, seriously. Sounds like casual sports fans too. Why are you talking about politics in my football? What are you talking? You're like, like they need to build new stadiums, and that's like zoning and money and tax dollars, and they want better tax dollars and stuff. But what are you talking about politics? It's just about football. Oh, Hassam, hey Juan, I want to hear your thoughts about the upcoming OnePlus 15R versus the 15. Let me save that for just a second. Let's wrap up some of this AirDrop, because the one thing that I neglected. Oh, whoops, I need to switch here. So first of the first implementation of this has been on Pixel devices. I don't think that's too surprising. Google, they sell their own phones, so they initiated it for their own phones first. But this is QuickShare. So we would assume that at some point there will be some kind of or improved compatibility for all of QuickShare, because it would be really ironic if Google did this and then walled gardened it. Like Google would be just as guilty of doing an Apple move if that were the case. But I caught this on Notebook Check. I don't know who posted it. Man, see, this is bugging me. Come on. Anyway, it's Notebook Check just embedding a tweet. But Qualcomm confirms QuickShare to AirDrop file transfer feature is coming to Snapdragon-powered devices. And then on Twitter, the official Snapdragon account quoted the Android account, which gave us the link to the article. And in their quote, they said, hey, I can't wait for people to use this once enabled on Snapdragon in the near future. So we should assume that there's going to be, again, a Google Play Services update probably that enables this Wi-Fi aware AirDrop compatibility on, I'd say, Qualcomm and probably MediaTek devices, probably following. So I think it'll hit Qualcomm devices first, then MediaTek, and then I don't even know like what Samsung might be doing with Exynos, what kind of market that looks like. But I'm sure Samsung will probably get involved with that too. Like, sorry, there were some really great comments here, like Aditya complaining about iPhone battery life. Um, Michael, right when Linus Tech Tips came out and said the new AirPods sucked, people practically rioted out of frustration. Finally, someone just called something back. Like, Apple doesn't just deserve praise because they did something. If you're talking about a competitive market, you actually got to compete in the market, and that's what's been so frustrating about the current slate, especially here in North America between Samsung, Google, and Apple, is they're just kind of coasting. Like, it's not exciting stuff. I pick up some Edifier and like there's something really interesting happening here on these earbuds, and you've got to be able to consistently share those kinds of experiences. And again, even then, like some of the headphone reviewers, like watching the battle happen, like, well, you're not measuring them properly, but they don't sound as good. But you needed to do this. But if they're not in the ear canal, like, why not? If you have to go through all of that to share an experience with your audience as to whether or not they're a better product or not, maybe they're just not a better product. Maybe the new AirPods are kind of a miss. You could say, hey, you know what? Skip this until we see that Apple's improved. Or stick with your older AirPods. Like, if you can find some older AirPods, maybe buy those instead. You should be able to get them on a sale or something. But it's this like need to validate Apple's done something new, and it always gets an implied purchasing recommendation. And even when criticizing, oh, but we can't say don't buy them. Of course you can. Watch. New AirPods, not that good for the price. Wait it out and see what Apple does to fix them. Don't buy them until either we see clear change in their performance or until they come up with a new hardware refresh which addresses the issues that we had with the product. If you had any journalistic integrity, that should be easy to do because consistently you're going to evaluate the product and recommend it based on not, oh, it's a new Apple thing, you're gonna buy it, so we're gonna validate your buying behavior. See, that's not a reviewer, that's a bootlicking influencer, that's a hack who's really bad at their job. Well, what do I know? I don't make any money on YouTube. Man, lots of commenting on like codecs and stuff too, where again, Apple consumers are hurt, but they don't seem to care that they're not getting the best that their products could deliver. All right, so call screening, do not disturb, watch unlock, camera control, and full charge notifications are limited to only working with a Pixel phone or the Pixel Watch. Some things I get because they're Pixel exclusive. So yeah, I mean, like, if you don't have call screen on your camera control also, because if you're not using a Google camera app, then that can't really work on a Google Watch. It would be nice if I don't know, maybe someone tell me if there's a way to do this. There should be like a little just app on Wear OS that could be used as a Bluetooth shutter. Like, think about we have it's literally just like a low power Bluetooth radio with a button, and we can use that as a remote shutter for our phones, right? It'd be cool if Wear OS could just do that and mimic a volume rocker click. So that way you could set up a reverse shutter. You probably wouldn't get full screen pass through because every Android camera app is different, but it would be pretty cool. Or you could also, if it were something like you got the Blackmagic camera app, if they could make a Blackmagic Android smartwatch app that then you push a button and it could take a photo. I know the Blackmagic camera app is about shooting video, but you know what I mean. If it were something like Motion or Open Camera or something like that, at least we'd have some way of doing that consistently. But again, for those, what I'm worried about when I say it doesn't have all the same features, for me, you get a Galaxy Watch and you were sold this Galaxy Watch and all this health tracking information, all of this like, you know, it's got an ECG and you can see heart rate and it's good for health and you can talk to your doctor, blah, 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 blah. And then you take that Galaxy Watch and you go to a OnePlus and then you can't do the health tracking stuff anymore. That you've broken a core fundamental feature of that. And so that to me is the stuff that I'm really worried about. Like, I don't think there's anything on the OnePlus Watch that I can do. And it even has an ECG built into it. It's just OnePlus in the United States was forced to deprecate their standalone ECG app, but you can still do that as part of their health, your rhythm. You can still see sinus rhythm in that app. It was a cheeky little workaround, but as long as you install OHealth on another phone, I can still do that. I still have that functionality. OHealth is like, yeah, sure, cool. I don't care what phone I'm on. The watch has that hardware. You shouldn't be blocked from using that hardware. But if there's something proprietary about Google's charging solution that prevents full charge notifications, then again, I would say that's a dumb thing to support. Why would you buy a Google? Again, I don't have any such limitations on a OnePlus. It's dumb to support a product that limits you like that. Oh, and Michael Peppertech, as far as I'm aware, it just requires an update to QuickShare so any company can integrate it by pushing the newest version with the feature built in. I don't know. I don't know how Wi-Fi Aware is implemented. Again, I'm speculating, I'm just guessing. But again, it could be something like Google phones use the Samsung radios, and that's what was officially for the security. Again, because this has to be a secure handoff, right? So the security that Google implemented was first implemented on this radio configuration with this Wi-Fi module in this app environment, and that's how QuickShare recognizes this so it can talk to an iPhone. And so Qualcomm might need to get involved to get their Wi-Fi radio approved and to make sure the security is functional. And then ditto, MediaTek might need to do something similarly there too. There could be some hardware level component whitelisting that has to happen so that this handoff and this exchange is done in a secure fashion. I believe that that could be staggered, right? I don't think it's just OnePlus has to update their Google Play services. I think it might need to be Qualcomm updates their whatever needs to happen on the Wi-Fi radio, and then phones with a Qualcomm chipset, then the manufacturer can patch into the Google Play Services update, and then your phone can talk, to an iPhone over AirDrop. It's at least how it kind of would work in my brain. I don't know that that's true. Oh, Sports Fan reacts. Do you think Airbus Pixel 10 will be manufacturer dependent? I kind of same addressing the same kind of question there. Okay, I think that just got us to the end here. Give me 1 second because I do want to pull up. We can't spend a lot of time on this because I gotta go. But I want to get this. Let me hide that. Oh, what I should do is pull this up. So apologies, I got to do this in a wacky way because my setup here is really dumb. Oh no, it didn't work at all. All right, and I just want to bring this over. And there was an announcement, OnePlus 15R. And who... Yeah, we'll just do the GSM Arena. I like GSM Arena. They're nifty dudes and dudettes and other dude-adjacent individuals. And let me pull this up here. GSM Arena, OnePlus 15R. Okay, so we've got the official, we've got the GSM Arena webpage up talking about this new announcement. And what's actually kind of cool, and I like to see this, OnePlus has started teasing 2 new launches on its website. Includes the new OnePlus 15R smartphone and the unnamed OnePlus smartwatch. No, I have the wrong one up. Hold on, sorry. Come on. SM Arena OnePlus 15R OnePlus Pad Go 2. And now I've gotten the right one. Podcasting is hard. OnePlus bills the 15R as its upcoming ultimate value, high quality flagship device, the Pad Go 2 as the best value mid-ranger 5G tablet, and the Watch Lite as its accessible high quality smartwatch. So the thing that I thought was kind of interesting, looking through this announcement, where I'm now going to scroll back down to this image, the thing that I thought was kind of interesting, I think this is going to be their first 5G tablet. Is it their first 5G tablet, or is it their first 5G tablet that'll actually ship to North America? That's what I don't know. I know here in the United States, I don't think we've ever gotten a OnePlus tablet with 5G built in. But then also the 15R, just looking like it's going to be kind of a similar take on what the R has represented. As we look at this like screenshot and we look at like for the camera sensors, I worry that we're probably going to step down to 2 camera sensors instead of the 3 that are on the OnePlus 13R. But in the same way that the OnePlus 15 is kind of a downgrade in camera performance for an upgrade in battery tech, I kind of had the same expectations that that's what we would see for the OnePlus 15R. The cameras on the OnePlus 15 are still a little better, but are very similar to the cameras that are on the OnePlus 13R. Well, you can't keep the same camera stack on the cheaper phone, right? So it's probably going to use a less powerful chip. It sounds like it's going to get an equally huge monster-sized battery, and it's going to have all the fast charging. So now we'll step down from 3 camera sensors to 2 camera sensors. That to me makes it could be. But having used the OnePlus tablets, what I'm really hoping is that we see the OnePlus Pad 3 stick around for another year. I really don't think there's a huge benefit to updating the OnePlus Pad 3 with a new chip for a whole year. The Snapdragon 8 Elite is a monster performer. The tablet is still a screamer, high productivity, laptop replacement kind of device. You could go through all of the regulatory policy, you could go through remanufacturing, you could put in a new chip that's even more expensive, or you could ride out the stock and quantity of Snapdragon 8 Elites and just leave that tablet in place. And then we could have like a TikTok. Every other year, we change the premium tablet, then a lower cost tablet. So I would love to see a 2-tablet strategy from OnePlus in the United States. And like consistently. I think for 2 years, the OnePlus Pad Go, is it the OnePlus Pad Go 2? That would be great. There really isn't a huge benefit, in my opinion, to re-architecting. That's so stupid. Changing the internals on that tablet. I mean, look at people who are still like years later still buying the Pixel Pad, right? It's the Google tablet, and it's got a Tensor 2, and it's sold for years and years and years. And there's another Black Friday deal on the Pixel Pad. Like, you can ride a tablet a bit longer in between these kinds of refreshes and reassemblies. So that to me would be a great strategy now. So leave the OnePlus Pad 3, just kind of let it go for another year. Get your money out of that design, that manufacturing, the fact that the chip is not more expensive. And then in 2026, that would stay. And in 2027, come out with the OnePlus Pad 4, but then the OnePlus Pad Go 2 can ride out 2027, right? So again, I'm getting a little discombobulated there, but I kind of like what I'm seeing. I just really need to see what prices look like, and then we should just have some expectations about what that performance looks like. This is another great opportunity. You can look at the OnePlus 15R and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't need this, extra 15% battery capacity, but I really liked the cameras that were on the OnePlus 13R. The OnePlus 13R is still, I think, going to get another 3 years of security updates, maybe 4 years of security updates. And if you can score a good deal on a OnePlus 13R, it's already the less expensive phone, and you might be able to find some cool sales just clearing out whatever the inventory or the stock might look like. See, that's a good opportunity. That's a good position for a consumer to be in, because, man, we're at that point. I just don't see, if you want a daily driver phone that gets incredible battery life, is high performance, feels fluid, functional, all that good stuff, like, you shouldn't be spending $1,000. And it's really easy at like the $600 level to get a device that is still ridiculous overkill for what you might be doing 4 years from now. And the thing that's really gonna stop you on that is, well, how does the battery age? How does the battery degrade? How are you charging it? So again, I feel like this is a very good situation for us to be in as consumers, even though the market is kind of terrible right now. Because you can go back 2 generations on premiums, score an incredible deal, and still end up with a wonderfully competitive device for how smartphones are being used today. Or if you like, what you see in the battery tech here, your main thing is battery life. Oh man, the OnePlus 15R I think is going to deliver huge, right? I think that's a really good place for consumers to be, given the realities of how brutal our tech market is right now. All right, so here, let me just kind of chew through some of these comments, and then we got to wrap this show up. Let me take one more drink of water. I'm going to take a couple more drinks of water. I always say that, and then it takes me forever to actually shut up and end the show. All right. Sports Fan reacts, hoping that with RCS being supported by Apple and now with AirDrop being on Android, that it will mostly get rid of the green bubble bullying by iPhone users, or is it wishful thinking? I think it's wishful thinking. I think green bubbles work psychologically, and if consumers cared about the actual functionality, then the green bubble wouldn't matter. But psychologically, they know green bubble bad. So as long as Apple still does that, then the people you're around, if they're that kind of hateful person who have to comment on other people's phones, then you're just going to be stuck. The thing that gets us away from that is moving to other messaging protocols. Like if you can get them to a WhatsApp or a Signal or a Telegram or anything else, get them into a family Discord chat. Nothing is perfect, but then it doesn't matter. Then it doesn't matter what color your messages are. Like right now, for some reason, Telegram has kind of become the casual, we're not putting sensitive information into it, just shooting the poop kind of messaging. I might try Signal. I also might try just like doing something silly and self-hosting, like a crazy high encryption kind of solution on my own. But no, the psychology is too ingrained. Someone sees green bubbles today and they still comment, oh, there's an Android, no, you can't, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, but I just shared this photo and this video. The problem was always you. iPhone users, the problem was always you. For Michael Peppertech, so the 15R is more like a 15T, it sounds like. I think OnePlus and Oppo especially, they really need to examine what is the value of keeping a presence in the United States with this brand label OnePlus. Because at some point, I feel like they're just going to leave. It doesn't make a lot of sense to keep manufacturing sort of a sub-tier of Oppo device. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like we can just get the Find X here in the United States. What I would love is to see a Find X Pro or a Find X Ultra rebadged as a OnePlus Pro or a OnePlus Ultra. And that I think would be awesome. You've already done the manufacturing. You still have to go through, regulatory approvals and licensing and wireless carrier specs and all that stuff. But it would be really nice if they could streamline their just make the exact same product and put a different label on the box, right? Like I'm being kind of silly and cynical about it, but after a point, you do have to question, why do you make a OnePlus, which is a lesser device than a Find X9, that costs your company money to manufacture and distribute? So I don't know. Because now we have, sort of the Find X9, and then we've got the OnePlus 15, and then we have the OnePlus 15R. So I just don't know what that breakup looks like. Because we also haven't heard a whole lot of news yet on like what other competitors are going to be doing. So like Realme is getting in on the mix, Xiaomi and Poco will be getting in on the mix. Are we going to get an iQOO? You're going to get like an iQOO. What? I don't even know what number we're at for the 2026. Is it iQOO 15? I don't know. I think it's the iQOO 15. Someone please correct me on that too. So anyway, to your point, it's kind of hard because like OnePlus has always moved those parts around. There was a OnePlus 9 and a OnePlus 9 Pro. Well, now the OnePlus 13 is the same level of product that the Pro used to be at, but it's the better one. The number used to be the worse one. And then you would do a number phone and a Pro phone. Well, now we did an R phone or a T phone and a number phone. Oppo really just kind of needs to settle in on one branding and marketing strategy, because we've had this ebb and flow. We had the OnePlus 10 Pro, and then we had the OnePlus 11. Well, the OnePlus 11 was a step down, just like the OnePlus 10T was. I don't remember. Anyway, I think it's confusing, and I think it hurts your ability to quickly talk about, oh, this is an upgrade from this, but this is a different number, and this is a Pro, but this was not a Pro, and this one's a number, and that one's a T, and that one's an R. And I don't think that helps consumers find your brand or get into what your company offers. A DTNL. What if the OnePlus 15R downgrades the sensors from the OnePlus 13? Oh no! I think we're pretty confident that's going to happen at DTNL. Oh no! Future, it's here. Man, I'm late. Yeah, dude. But I'm glad you dropped by. Thank you for dropping by. um, oh, JGJ, thanks for that. If you're considering self-hosting, maybe consider the Element or Matrix protocol. I'm not jumping into that. It's just something I was thinking, like it would be really cute to have our own family chat, and then maybe we could host it in some way. So anyway, I'm not there yet, but I do feel like it's something I want to play with. Yeah, tangential tesseract. Is the OnePlus skin notably different from Oppo these days? No. If you pick up a Find X9 and you pick up a OnePlus 15, the outer shell is exceedingly similar, and the software is very similar. And I don't get their distribution strategy. I don't get why they're making everything so similar, because I know that's partly a cost savings, but then you do need to tool up and make a different phone. So that is an additional cost when you're already trying to make it so similar, but you just have different boxes with different labels on the outside of the box. So I'm just really, I don't quite get what they're trying to achieve. I feel like I had a better handle on that with the OnePlus 12 and the OnePlus 13. It made a lot more sense to me. But this current flavor, this market reaction from Oppo makes less sense to me. But there's still cool things to point out. If you want battery life, you can do this. And if you want cameras, you can do that. I get it. But I don't think it's the best long-term path for consumer understanding, consumer awareness. Yeah, some other fun stuff there. Oh, and JGJ. I mean, again, we also have to acknowledge this: to avoid scrutiny from US regulators, but Oppo was a sponsor of an American fashion show. So I understand why Oppo doesn't dump millions of dollars into high visibility branding and advertising for OnePlus. Because every time a Chinese manufacturer has really tried to do that, there seems to be some kind of political pushback to that. Just as Huawei was getting a carrier deal set up with AT&T, big pushback. And oh, it's because of Huawei's networking business. We're worried about, the security of our networks, so we're also going to block any consumer facing devices from being sold in the United States. To this day, I still don't feel like we've been given any good information or proper disclosures from law enforcement agencies to show how Huawei consumer devices were the security threat that they were claiming they were to be. I'm not saying that evidence doesn't exist. I'm just saying it would be really nice if at some point you could show consumers what the threat is, because that's going to make our products better and it's going to help inform better purchasing decisions. I'm cynical enough to say a Google, an Apple, and a Samsung might approach our government and say, hey, this Chinese company is making too much noise. What can we do to stop competition? Probably not executives directly, but those executives probably pay lobbyists to then go and have those conversations on behalf of our elected officials and the companies involved. I'm not saying that's happening. I'm being really cynical, putting on my tinfoil hat and putting out a conspiracy theory that's probably not true, possible, given the current state of competition in the United States. So I totally get that. If Oppo wants OnePlus to become a much more powerful market force in North America, they have to worry about the additional scrutiny of a Chinese company, a Chinese brand, becoming more popular in the United States. But still, I wish that there was just a bit better consistency in how OnePlus went about marketing and distributing their products, because I think that would help. If you do see a OnePlus and you can buy it, I don't even know what sites. Is OnePlus still on Best Buy? Is this only through OnePlus? I thought there were going to be Amazon and Best Buy deals where maybe you can't find a OnePlus in the store, but you could buy a OnePlus through Best Buy or Amazon. I can't remember. It sucks because it's really hard to convince on the daily companion pocket computer they live their life out of if they can't at least pick it up and hold it before they buy it. So it's tough. So from Demoda Killa, one says Huawei was spying, but the other brands did as well. I really believe Huawei needed a severe corporate market correction from regulators. There are numerous stories about how Huawei would do business in bad faith, and right up to the line of what we would call industrial espionage. There's a wild case about a company that was making this diamond glass, and they were showing it off in Vegas, and it was really hush hush, hands off, you can't take samples of it. The United States government was very interested in this material manufacturing, and there's a story of Huawei sort of muscling into this space and saying, hey, we really want to take a look at it. And the company said, okay, you can't break it, you can't stress test it, it can't leave the country because the United States government is active in observing our manufacturing. The intellectual property is of a high interest to the United States military, and you can only have it for 48 hours. And Huawei executive said, cool, we'll get it right back to you. 48 hours later, it was clear that executives had jumped on a plane, flown to China, they brought back broken pieces of the material, and that they had just stolen a tiny little new glass material. It's that kind of stuff. There are numerous stories of how Huawei would do business. To me, that is regulatory market correction. That is maybe some executives going to jail. That is a little different than what the United States government did in declaring Huawei a dangerous threat to privacy, security, telecommunications infrastructure, blah, 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 blah. And again, whether or not their networking side of the business was that scary or was that dangerous, we still had the consumer side of the business And I feel like those should have been handled in different ways from a regulatory and from a law enforcement standpoint. But again, I'm not a government dude, guy, expert, analyst, man. So my ramblings here are only from the techie, nerdy side of this, being educated just enough on these topics to be probably dangerous to myself. From Future, it's here. Cool, but OnePlus doesn't advertise globally either, if I'm not mistaken. They actually do. Again, their advertising is weird and quieter and not as in your face. But Oppo, in managing OnePlus, has made it pretty clear they are looking at OnePlus as a razor thin margin kind of territory, kind of company. That they are supposed to be this like lean, aggressive parts bin manufacturer for Oppo at large, to work into other markets, and especially in markets where you might be moving more consumers up from entry level to mid-ranger devices. And so there's very little fat to trim on this company from Oppo. Whether or not that's true today or however this might function now, that's the claim that Oppo has made about OnePlus. It's razor thin margins, if also maybe not a profitable entity. But they still do market and advertise in their own way. I mean, even just the fact that OnePlus will send me a device is a form of marketing, right? There was a cost associated with sending me a phone and the shipping and the device itself, and I disclosed that OnePlus sent me this device because they wanted me to review it. No money has been exchanged. They've never sponsored one of my videos. It's nothing like that. But that is a type of messaging that the company is expending funds on. So I don't know. It's messy and it's tricky. It's just I wish there were other opportunities to kind of break up the triumvirate of Google, Apple, and Samsung here in the United States. So, oh, cool. Future, it's here. I'm putting in a video in the Patreon about Huawei and security concerns. I'm very interested. Please do. I'll give it a watch as soon as I can. I'd love any more data that's verifiable claims built into it. Because I still, to this day, I think it's one of the failings of our foreign policy that if Huawei was deserving of that scrutiny and deserved to be on the entities list, and it wasn't just a threat against a company that was proving to be successful, we should have had data. And it would have been really beneficial to send that data to at least some of like the tech journalists out there to help reinforce why this is a practice we really needed to examine, or why this was a situation that needed that level of scrutiny. To me, it only helps the argument if Huawei was really dangerous. So anyway, I'll kind of wrap that up there. Let me take a quick drink of water, and then we're going to close this out. So as you spend time with your family and friends this holiday season, appreciate one, getting your newer iPhone owning relatives up to speed. If you have a Pixel, you can start now, you know, file sharing, just like, hey, look, your iPhone's not broken anymore. And make sure you phrase it directly like that. Your iPhone couldn't send me files, and now, because of EU regulators, Apple was forced to let this work. So now my Pixel can send you a file. Your iPhone was broken and regulators fixed it. Don't let them go off on this idea that somehow, oh, Apple was so magnanimous and they fixed this, so now that we can send things to those poor broken poors with Androids that are poor. No. Make sure they know they have been spending the most on a product that was incomplete, and it was European regulators that fixed it for them. But if you're not trying to be that cheeky or that cynical with your family and friends, which really, you know, it's not about attracting flies with honey, right? More flies are attracted by apple cider vinegar. The thing I would actually appreciate everybody doing this holiday season, we are the nerds. You're watching a podcast like mine, I'm sorry to say, if you didn't know already, you're probably a massive geek. I recently produced a short, and I'm trying to reach out to my other friends in the tech reviewing community. And surprisingly, we're all busy. Not surprisingly, we're all real busy, and there hasn't been a lot of traction on this. But I'm making this my holiday campaign. My neighborhood in California recently did an e-waste drop off. And I went through my bookshelf and I did a little audit of all my phones. And from last year to this year, I found 10 more phones with failing batteries. Big of potential explosive energy in my bookshelf, in my office. Shares a wall with my daughter's bedroom, right? This is not great. That's not a safe thing to have in your home. It's also not garbage that you can just casually throw away in the regular trash. So I made a point out of sharing my experiences and talking about this. It was mostly Samsung devices, which shouldn't be too surprising for anyone who understands, battery manufacturing and technology. It's not to shame a particular manufacturer, though Samsung sucks. I would like everybody in this stream right now, and anyone who's listening to the end of this podcast from the replay crew, take a minute over Thanksgiving dinner, over a supper, over Christmas, over New Year's. It's already the right time of year, right? We're looking forward to the next new year, all of our New Year's resolutions. We're looking at getting a fresh start. That's how we conceptualize time. Ask your family and friends, like, hey, do you have like an old phone, an old tablet, an old gadget, an old camera, something with a rechargeable battery that's just been sitting around in a closet or in a junk drawer? Now's the right time to start getting rid of that stuff and to normalize getting rid of this stuff in a safe way. If you take it to a proper e-waste disposal facility, if a company, sometimes Best Buy will do like e-waste drop-offs, just look, see if you can help them find what opportunities they might have in their neighborhood, because you don't want Granny's Galaxy S3 starting a closet fire, right? I think it's frustrating because this topic has been brought up and a lot of people will jump and leap to the defense of Samsung. They like Samsung, they make lots of money on Samsung videos. But I often get this like weirdly, willfully ignorant reaction, but who's even using an old phone like that anymore? And I just need to point out, because I'm angry and bitter and sarcastic, I'm sardonic, the idiocy of a reply like that, because that is the problem. Most of the phones that battery puffed were older phones that weren't in regular operation. I still like to go through my bookshelf regularly. It takes so much time. But I'll sit there and I'll try and top off batteries to around 50%. I've got like 2 of those big crate batteries that have multiple plugs, so I can go like 15 devices at a time. But that's still a lot of time for me to plug in. Okay, it's at like 40%. Okay, this one's at 20%. Let me let this one top off. Okay, this one was dead. Back up to 50. Is this even worth keeping still? I don't know. But that's the problem. Yes, people should be on newer devices than like Galaxy S2s or Galaxy S3s. But most of my family has some old iPhone or some old Samsung, an ancient HTC that, yeah, I traded in phones, but I'd gone so long, it wasn't even worth doing a trade-in. So I just have this Galaxy S5 kicking around. Again, one of the phones that I got rid of was a battery puffed Galaxy S5, a Galaxy S6 Active. It was a Galaxy S3 battery, was a big old spicy pillow. I kept the Galaxy S3, but I got rid of the battery because we could do that back then. You could just take the battery out. See how that was always a benefit. So spend some time. Talk to your family and friends, and this is real casual. You don't need to talk about the science or the companies or the marketing or the business. You just go like, you should look around. This nerd on the internet said he almost started a house fire in his office because he had a whole bunch of old phones lying around. You don't have anything like that, do you? You're not stupid like that gadget guy is, right? Like you get rid of these things appropriately and you don't have like a ticking time bomb in your closet right now, yeah? Throw me under the bus. Just make it make it casual, keep it light. But this is an easy one for us to contribute. This is an easy one for our nerdiness and our gadget enthusiasm and our fandom to just help people out and at least let them know this could be a problem. You have an old storage unit, maybe you've got like an old BlackBerry in like a box in a storage unit. Get rid of it. Let that go. So, first of all, also just use me as an example of what not to do, because I'm the one with a good idea running a museum of old phones. That is like, I've just got tons of little issues with that. But we can at least help those around us, and we can give them better information. There's no point holding on to this. There's no point keeping it. And the older it gets, the more likely it could have some kind of failure that could set a part of your house on fire. And then don't break eye contact, because they're gonna like kind of giggle, or they'll get uncomfortable, or they'll get nervous. But like, you only bring it up. You're only bringing this up with them because you care about them. It's not about shaming. It's not about, oh, you should have bought this. No. Is it old? Batteries fail. Look around. Make sure you don't have anything like this in your home. And then I think everyone will be happier and healthier this holiday season for just getting rid of some junk. Oh no, I have a lot of old phones. Start getting rid of them. Yeah, it's not great. So, folks, this is my favorite holiday of the year this week. I am a nut for Thanksgiving. Hopefully I'll be able to share some really fun photos and videos of cooking up food. But yeah, this is that time of year for me. I hope you're all safe, warm, well-fed, and getting to spend some time with people who care about you, right? It's the time of year where we make the effort and it feels special to do it. And hopefully this just kind of helps throughout the rest of the year. You can kind of reacquaint with some of your family and friends, and I look forward to it every year. So I hope you are too. I should be back. We're still going to be probably in the midst of traveling, but I should be able to kind of come back and do another proper show next Monday for the SGGQA podcast. I'll tweet or something, probably not tweet, but if there's anything coming up. But again, thank you everybody who's supporting the show, who's showing up for, jumping into the comments, sharing these types of things. If you review podcasts and you're on the replay crew, reviewing podcasts on all your favorite podcast platforms helps a lot. And of course, the patrons who get the full finished, ad-free, no interruption version of the podcast. All those people on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. Huge thank you, bottom of my heart, because they're the ones that really keep this show running. They're helping to subsidize all of the production on my YouTube and on my website and here on the live streams. They're really cool tech pals. So if you can, check out the community at patreon.com/somegadgetguy. Now, stay tuned. I got a lot of stuff coming out. It's going to be weird because of Thanksgiving, but I'm ready to publish. The Vivo X300 will probably land in a day or two. And I'll catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the... the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe, take care, and take care of yourselves, that mental health, so you can keep taking care of others like the great tech neighbor I know you can be. I'll catch you back next week. I love you all.